Hello everyone, I am Miss Howington, and this is a video for Research Triangle High School, home of the Raptors. Rah, rah, rah. So this is an introduction to our AP Environmental Science course. So over the course of the entire year, we're going to try to talk about a whole lot of stuff. In particular, we are talking about environmental science, go figure. So first of all, this is going to cover kind of the material that's in your handy-dandy textbook in the first couple of modules that they have there. So the environment is the sum of all of the conditions that surround us and influence life. So it's all of the living things, or things that were once living, and which we call biotic factors, and all of the non-living things, or things that have never been living, or abiotic factors. And then we're also going to spend a lot of time talking about human impact, because we tend to have a ton of influence and impact over how our environment functions. So environmental science is the study of interactions among human systems and systems found in nature. And so a system is just any group of components that interact and influence each other by exchanging both energy and materials. So a system could be a single organism, and all of the systems inside of the organism. So we have like the tongue that's part of the digestive system, and the teeth that influence or that interact with also like other organs like the eyes that help the velociraptor hunt. So that's a whole system. Or we could talk about how a population of velociraptors interact with each other, or we could talk about an entire community where maybe velociraptors, then we're talking about velociraptors and their prey, and also maybe some T-Rex that might prey on the velociraptors, or we could go even bigger and talk about all living things on Earth, or the biosphere. So we are going to, one of the levels of organization that we're going to talk a lot about in environmental science is an ecosystem. So an ecosystem is a particular location where there are interacting biotic and abiotic factors. That might be something like a pine forest or an intertidal zone. And then another really important thing to clear up in environmental science is not environmentalism. Environmental science is a science. It follows a process of the scientific method. So we make observations, hypotheses, we test those hypotheses, we collect data, and then we make conclusions based on that data. Whereas environmentalism is a social movement that is seeking to protect the environment by changing people's thoughts and opinions through either like lobbying, activism, education, all sorts of things like that. So we are focusing on the science part of it, where we are making observations and collecting data and making data-based conclusions. Environmental science is a very multidisciplinary study. We are taking and applying pieces from lots of different things like chemistry and biology, which you guys have already studied, and then also adding in some things like economics. So we're going to talk about money and how that influences the environment and how we treat the environment. And then earth science, so like how the earth systems function and create these systems that support life. And then also we're going to talk a lot about human interactions. So we need to talk about sociology and anthropology, and psychology. So how humans interact with each other, how we interact with our environment, how we use things, and the way that we think and make decisions. So one of the things that we're really concerned about when we're looking at how humans change the environment is we want to know if we are messing things up. So we rely on a lot of things on planet Earth, a lot of the systems on planet Earth to live, to supply us things that we need. And so we want to know if we're damaging any life support systems. So like the meteor that came around when the dinosaurs were here, that damaged a lot of their life support system. That, created the big dust cloud, it blocked out the sun, created a lot of volcanic eruptions, that also further blocked out the sun and spewed poisonous gases into the atmosphere. And so that made it impossible for plants to grow, which made it impossible for herbivores to eat, which made it impossible for velociraptors and other carnivores to find any prey. And so it kind of destroyed their life support system. And so some of the things that we look at are the ecosystem services. So those are the processes in the environment that provide essential resources to us. So we're looking at things like clean water, and the abundance of fish that we use to consume, or clean air or timber that we get from a forest. And so if an ecosystem is degraded or harmed, then those services can disappear. So to kind of help us judge the health of the environment that we're looking at, we look at environmental indicators. So these are just metrics that help us get a picture of the health of an environmental system. And again, systems can be at any scale. So we could be looking at the health of a population of animals, or we could be looking at the health of an entire ecosystem. And so environmental indicators don't tell us what is causing the change. They just kind of let us know that, hey, there's something, off kilter, and maybe we need to do a little bit more research and look deeper into it. So on the global scale, we're going to focus on 5 main environmental indicators. We're going to talk about biodiversity a lot. Towards the end of the year, we're going to talk about food production in the spring. We're going to talk about the average global surface temperature and carbon dioxide concentrations. That's going to be one of our very first units. We're going to talk about the human population and also resource use and depletion. So biodiversity is the variety of all of the living things in a system. And again, we can look at this at many different scales. So we can look at species diversity. So how many different types of dinosaurs do we have? We have T-Rex and velociraptors. We can also look at genetic diversity, which is the variety of genes within an organism or within a population of T-Rexes. And then we can look at the variety of ecosystems on Earth. So we can look at this at lots of different scales. Food production, we kind of all need to eat. And food production requires us to have healthy soil, healthy water, and space. And we have a population on Earth of about 7.4 billion people as of this year, 2016, and it's growing. We're getting a lot more humans on Earth. And all of those people need to be fed, so food production is kind of really important. And then, like I said, we look at the average global surface temperature on Earth and the carbon dioxide concentration. So the average global surface temperature on Earth has kind of remained pretty much the same throughout time, thanks to the greenhouse effect. However, when we add lots of greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide from human actions, that magnifies the greenhouse effect and increases our temperature and kind of throws some of our systems off balance that have been in balance for a really long time. And then again, we're going to look at the human population. Like I said, we're growing pretty fast. Actually, we've kind of slowed down our growth, but it's still growing. And so more people means that we all need more resources. So we all need a certain amount of clean water. We all need a certain amount of food. We need mineral resources. And so we kind of want to know, like, do we have enough stuff on Earth to support all of us? And so tying into that is resource depletion. So we use things, and some of those things aren't going to ever be recreated within our lifestyle, within our lifetime. And so we need to know if there's enough of those things to last us and to last our kids and our grandkids and so on and so forth. And we also tend to uncover and create toxic substances in the way that we use things, which isn't super great for our health. And so those are the 5 things that we're going to look at a lot and spend a lot of time talking about. And then another thing that we're going to spend a lot of time talking about is sustainability. So this is just the way that things are used or the way that we live our lives so that future generations can have access to the same resources that we have access to, and preferably in sufficient amounts for them to actually use and do things with. So this applies to both non-living resources like water and minerals and petroleum and things like that, and also living resources. So we eat a lot of living resources, and we also like being around other living things. There's been several studies that have shown that like our mental health improves, and it's a big social factor for us to be around other living things and access nature. So we need these resources. And so one way that we can measure the amount of stuff that we use is an ecological footprint. And this helps us kind of determine sustainability, because we don't want to use more than our fair share, basically. So an ecological footprint is how much one person or a group of people consume and dispose, expressed as an area of land. So it's basically the amount of land that's needed to supply all of the resources and also contain all of the waste that a person or community uses and produces. So that's a big, broad overview of what we'll study this year. We will definitely delve very, very deep into each of those topics. But for now, that is all I have for you.